cancer, air pollution, toxic chemicals in our water. These are the problems facing my hometown of Memphis, Tennessee, and other urban cities around the world. Now more than ever, we need to encourage every young mind to pursue a career in science, no matter who they are, what they look like, or where they come from. Because full representation unlocks the power of science, and the next great scientific breakthroughs will come from anyone, anywhere. But let's face it, if you're a person of color and come from a marginalized community, it can be difficult and demoralizing to break into the scientific field. I know because I experienced that struggle firsthand. Growing up in Memphis, science wasn't talked about much. I had to discover it on my own through PBS documentaries, books at the library, and eventually special research programs that I was fortunate enough to get into. I went on to earn my degree in molecular and cellular biology from the University of Memphis. Y'all can clap. I was sure I found my purpose in life, but all my years of studying didn't prepare me for just how difficult it would be to be one of the only Black scientists in the lab. One of the places I worked at was St. Jude's Children's Research Hospital, just a stone's throw from where I grew up, in a city that's 65% Black. But when I looked around, I rarely saw another person who looked like me. Every day, I had to defy the low expectations others had for me. I remember volunteering to give a talk to my research department. People looked at me like I was foolish for even asking. Well, I'm talking now. The problem just wasn't at institutions I was working for. According to the National Science Foundation, Black people represent only 2.5% of people working in life sciences. I realized that the greatest impact I could have as a scientist would be to improve that statistic, to help more young people of color pursue their love for plants and animals, to give more young minds the tools and the chance to tackle the greatest threat of our time, climate change. So, 13 years ago, I became a science teacher. I learned pretty quickly that it's not easy to teach someone to change the world. You can't just sit them at the desk, give them a textbook, and ask them to memorize the periodic table. Instead, you have to expose them to real-world problems so that they can develop the solutions that only come from first-hand experience. But as I looked around, I didn't see a high school set up to do that. Then a billboard on Interstate 55 changed everything for me. An organization called XQ was launching a national competition for communities to redesign their own high schools. A Memphis parent saw that XQ billboard and brought together dozens of families and educators and advocates and neighbors to dream and plan. I was so excited when I heard about that new school because I knew so much is possible when a community rallies around its students. So I joined Crosstown High as a science teacher when the school opened in 2018. At Crosstown, we are diverse by design. Our students mirror the demographics of Memphis, and in my classroom, they are doing real science, applying what they learn in the classroom to real-world projects. Students like DeRobert, they're learning about the effects of a local contaminated creek on the Black residents where he lives. Students like Brittany are mining for bacteria in the healing soil of Memphis neighborhoods that could be used to create new antibiotics. Students like Rachel are thinking big about long-term solutions to climate change through our Mars project, about what it would take for humans to live on another planet with lessons that can be applied here on Earth too. This work is important for the world because we're going to need all of the diverse brain power we can harness to tackle the challenges in front of us, including climate change. It's also important for these students. I love watching them consider a scientific question not as a challenge to be solved, but as an opportunity for big ideas. As the XQ Learner outcomes say, we need our students to be knowledgeable, capable, curious, original, and generous. And I love seeing their confidence grow. Nothing makes me more prouder, more optimistic for our future than seeing my students walking into institutions like St. Jude and the University of Tennessee, ready to share their ideas. They've been empowered to deal with the obstacles and doubts because they know they belong. Just imagine what would happen if every person had this kind of start. Science lab across the nation would be filled with people of diverse backgrounds pursuing science. And full representation wouldn't just unlock the power of science, it would also create a better future for all of us. And students like Brittany, DeRobert, and Rachel, with creatively beautiful minds, will be able to solve the most pressing issues of tomorrow, no matter who they are and where they come from. Thank you.